Hello, friends. My name is host Eric. I'm the host of Talking with Famous People. I'm here tonight to discuss on a live stream the important topic of INFP, the scariest type. The answer is yes, they are. Um, I had a typing session earlier today, which I told you on INFP, and I felt so supervised the entire time. Like, it's so uncomfortable because, unlike other people, you just you just get this sense that you can't impress INFPs. If you're an ENTP, you cannot impress an INFP. It's not possible. A client of mine, somebody I typed already as ENTP, she put this thing together and she wanted me to type this person in her life who was, I think, a boss or something. And at the end of it, we had an interesting conversation where I was explaining to her, listen, it's not going to work. You're never going to impress this guy. It's just not going to work because you're his supervisee. And I asked her, I was like, have you ever spent any time with an ISTP? And she said, not really. Well, then you don't know the other side of it. And so you when ENTPs hang out with ISTPs are always going to seem kind of stunted to us because we're their supervisors. They're never going to have the ideation to hang with us on their dominant function, basically. Well, I do get scared. I get very scared of INFP. I get out of my best behavior. I get all like, is that okay? Is that okay? Is that good enough? You know? Um, and one of the things that drives me nuts about INFPs is consistently they listen a lot and don't give me a lot to go on necessarily beyond that. They're not like ENFPs. They don't. On the other hand, blah 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 blah. Blah. They hear what you have to say and then they hmm, reflect on it and say, no, a lot of that resonates with me, and but it's like, how do you know what type is your supervisor? You could look at the socionics intertype relationship chart, which you can, if you Google that and push images, they'll show a picture of it. It makes it really easy to see what your supervisor type is. Um, I like typing in general. I like typing people. Typing INFPs is always a challenge though, and it's like it's hard on my soul.
So is she um would she be she wouldn't be my supervisor type, but
Who?
uh, the same person that would be your supervisor type,
No,
right?
your supervisor type would be ESTJ, your mom.
Oh, good enough.
So you're
And your dad. Okay.
and my dad. So you're feeling constantly supervised by them, which is why you're always like, but
Do you
is
notice how
David
I am
happy?
supervised by them?
Well, David's I mean, you fit naturally into my dad's life, right? In the sense that my mom went away, and here comes another ISFJ who can be
Okay.
supervised by him in some way. And
Oh,
so
I see. I
in that
see.
regard, it's consistent with his expectations.
Okay, but so then if you were being supervised by somebody that you were typing, why is it that like so what is it that I would like how would I like I've sat in your typings before and I can tell you're being supervised just by your behavior.
Let me
But
tell you who your supervisor is. I mean, who your supervisee is.
who?
That would be, um, all right, your dominant is their polar, and your tool is, so that would be like ENFJ. Do you supervise ENFJ? It's possible. I'd have to look at the chart.
I want to know, but anyways, I'm curious to know So if you're being supervised and I'm sitting here watching it, but I'm feeling the energy, as I do being an ISFJ, um, am I not being supervised by her as well or him as
Correct.
well?
No, yeah. You have a
But am I
different.
getting what am I getting
What you're just picking up on my vibe with the
No, I'm
person.
not. I picked up on my own vibe from her.
From who?
One of the typings that you did.
Oh, well, I'm talking about a typing today that I did that you weren't here for any of it.
Okay, but I'm saying a couple days ago, weren't you also doing a typing for somebody that was your supervisor type?
You mean the difficult person? Is that what you're talking about? Hold on.
We call her.
That was ISFP. That's
Okay,
my
so that's
conflict.
not
That's my conflictor type.
Conflictor.
So
Okay,
you
but
saw
that's
me
what
battle with that person a
right,
lot,
but
right?
what I'm saying is so if you're having that, what sort of a reaction am I naturally going to get? Like I got a reaction too. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, well, for you, that type for you is going to be
So if you're being supervised, I'm not necessarily being supervised by that type, but I'm what to that? Like, you know what I'm saying?
you are in that instance.
Because I wanted
That's
to
called
I wanted to go
quad
plow.
quasi-identical is what that's called. That relationship for you. The quasi-identical is a relationship that um that doesn't take me to the link on it. I'm not sure exactly. Quasi-identical. My quasi-identical is. I'm gonna have to look at this here. It says figure it out. My quasi-identical is ENTJ. Okay, so there's kind of a certain amount of mutual respect and mutual disrespect that goes on between the quasi-identicals. So it's like I have a certain amount of respect for ENTJs for sure, and I have a certain amount of eye-rolly disrespect for them.
Well, I found myself in the beginning of that typing kind of remember I was like kind of like sympathizing with her. I was like saying like I was watching you and Becky try to pull some stuff out of her and make a determination, and I kept kind of saying, well, wait a minute, like she's probably like didn't she came in here not knowing what to expect, and so she needs to like get comfortable, because I know a lot of times you assume that people are like right up in front with you and don't have this like uncomfort or discomfort of coming face to face with you for the first time, like I only know that like I just don't like being on screen at all because I'm constantly staring at myself and I can't focus on what I'm talking about because I'm too interested in what I'm looking at. So what I'm saying is that certain types will come in there and have their own things that they're distracted by in the very beginning of meeting you for the first time, of not knowing what to expect or whatnot. So it sometimes takes people like 10 minutes to settle into the, to the vibe of what you're doing. And so what I'm saying is like right off the get-go you're like, okay, I asked 3 questions, da, 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 da. And so people are still kind of processing, okay, that part of it. But so I found myself, I guess you say quasi, I found myself in the beginning kind of, well, you guys, let's be soft on her, like at first, and then by the end, like I said, I wanted to piao.
Right. Well,
so I did sense the conflictor type. It was very evident to me that there was like confliction going on. I mean, it was so evident. It was like tension in the air. ISFJ. I can feel the, I can feel the thickness. I can cut it with butter, sort of a vibe. But if it's not my conflictor type, if I'm also getting angry, what is it that she's triggering in me and my type as an ISFJ that all of a sudden she went from me sympathizing to her sympathizing.
Well, it's the same reason I get mad. It's the same reason I get mad at ENTJs sometimes. In your mind, they're prioritizing fundamentally the wrong function. So I get mad when people prioritize TE too much and they have too much TE in their argumentation and they keep trying to bring things back to empirics and to to some sort of
It was just odd though for
whatever.
me too, because with my own.
But the thing is, she's using FI. That's the thing you're objecting to. She's using FI to drive for TI. For you, FI is countervalued. It's demonstrative. It's something you reveal, but that's not driving your decision making.
Okay, so I know we're not supposed to there's got to be level of professionalism. Discuss the typing itself, but every so often you get a few people that are a little unsure of things, and they'll do the eye rolling thing, when they're being really defensive, which there's no reason to be defensive in a typing, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of crazy, but the eye rolls, and I was getting so annoyed with her eye rolls. Does that not annoy everybody, or is it just me and other certain types that would annoy somebody when you're doing your very best?
Well, I mean, in that instance, you're looking at an FI dom who's coming in to confirm a type they believe themselves to be or have identified themselves to be, and is specifically any polar and NI satisfying. So this is an individual who comes in thinking they've got an NI solution that's giving them satisfaction. They want to verify that. Unfortunately, they're wrong, but they're not. They're any polar, so they can't see really the other potentialities. So, So the thing is, let me address some of these questions here. Like, what is wrong with TE argumentation? Apparently, arguing using known facts to Eric is too much. No, I'm not saying that wouldn't be TE argumentation. Argumentation is TE it's a framing issue. It's a matter of whether we're framing things in terms of legitimacy or utility. It's a matter of whether we're trying to prioritize incorrectly and unwisely something that is more empirically rooted, even though it means less. So that's a TE approach that tends to cause them to be wrong a lot, TI people use facts, of course. TI people warrant their justifications. They warrant it with a number of different kinds of argumentation, including referencing concrete facts and empirics. That's nothing wrong with that, but it's not the end all of understanding. And that's where TE tends to break down, is it forgets that there's a bigger frame. Multiple person tests consistently positive for a polar, but other things about them are not consistent with those types. Well, I mean, you'd have to give me an example of what it means to be inconsistent with, consistent with some other type, right? So it's like if somebody tests the polar SI, let's say, well, then that should mean that they're an ENFJ or an ENTJ. But I had an INFJ who apparently tested polar on SI, but I'm still pretty convinced they're an INFJ. So what that tells me is that the polar's not 100% definitive. Like, in that instance, she was less good at SI than I would have expected. But the thing to remember is she may very well have been an ENFJ. If there's anybody who's going to be able to fake being an INFJ for the duration of the entire conversation, it's going to be an ENFJ. So, I feel less than 100,000,000% sure that person was an INFJ. I feel somewhat like, well, maybe they were an ENFJ faking it. Very well. The thing is, with the any polar test, we know that ISFP answers it a certain kind of way, and ISTP answers it another kind of way. ISTP is really easy to determine. If you really get an ISTP who's got that kind of any polar, then they should be consistent with ISTP across the board. I haven't encountered any ISTPs who don't really, pop in terms of that. Huh?
Does that have a bulb?
Yeah. Let me turn it on.
Yeah. I think I want to write the things right here.
Okay, sure.
A Sharpie? Do we have a big, fat, black
Sharpie? Possible, but you'll have to look for that. I don't see it in here at the moment.
Okay, guess you'll have to do that for me though, also when you're not live streaming.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna need to ask questions. But
yeah.
you know, I want to be able to follow along and have to know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know what SI or TE and
All right. I'll
like
put a
daily vocabulary in my life.
I will put a
about.
translation board up. Okay. So the thing is, you'd have to give me. I would say that if they do test positive for TI polar or for SI polar, you can definitively limit them down to a couple of possible types. If they really definitively test positive for TI polar, you're pretty clearly in the ESFP range, and there's not really going to be any exceptions to that. ENFPs will test a little bit better in the TI polar, but not much. So you have to give me a specific. You have to give me something more specific than to work with, I guess. So the thing is, I do find INFPs intimidating because basically they're ignoring my FE overtures and they're evaluating things according to their own authentic feelings, which I can't touch really with my TI or my FE. They see me using TI instead of FI, and they believe that it's most effectively used in service of FI. And so, in that sense, I constantly feel like I'm getting judged a little bit. Is actually TI polar I was referring to? Okay, so if the person's truly TI polar, like answers questions, logic questions with answers that reveal they don't even understand what a logic question is, such as, if Judy went to the store on Monday and blah, 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 and then they give you some sort of conclusion like Judy likes food, then you're almost guaranteed to be ENFP or ESFP. So what do you think the person is? They're TI polar, and what else do you think they are besides ESFP and ENFP? I never will learn the INFP dark arts. I shall never learn them. They will always be my supervisor type. I will always be intimidated by them. It's a weird phenomenon because all my normal things that would sort of implicitly give me confidence are irrelevant to INFPs. So that's why, I guess.
Look at the pocket on his shirt. In the screen. Oh.
It says TWFP. Stands for Talking with Famous People, in case you didn't know. I'm trying to type one of my friends, and it's so hard. I'll go down one train of thought, and then something she says disproves it. It keeps happening over and over, and I've ruled out like all the types. Well, you gotta get indications that are whether, like, you gotta see what her defaults are, basically, or his defaults are. Oh, she, her. Okay, let's see. What else do we got? But then again, the ENFPs I've typed, who I'm even pretty sure about, passed the TI test, so it's kind of stressful. I feel like I never really know for sure. They'll do a little bit better than ESFPs, but they typically won't pass it particularly well. The reason is because they've got extroverted intuition, which is fundamentally a language generating tool of sorts. And so it means that they're able to parse words a little bit necessarily because they're so much more intimate with the definitional nature of language. Is polar the last function? It's the 7th slot function. And the reason it's your blind spot has to do with the fact that your 3rd slot function represents an absolute value that's of diminished scope of attention. So all the feelings attention you have is directed towards that. And I guess the better way to put it is, it's when your tool function is TI, your polar is FI. When your tool whatever your tool function is, the other kind of that function, whether it's deliberation, knowledge, action, or whatever, interface, then that other one of that will be polar. So since I use a TI deliberation as tool, I'm FI polar. If I used FI deliberation as tool, I'd be TI polar. If I use TE deliberation as tool, I'm FE polar, and vice versa. And if I use NI as tool, then I'm SI polar, and vice versa. Would you say that most online type descriptions are misleading or even inaccurate? Yes. I found that type descriptions for the function stack that fits best for me fall short. Yes, I would say those type descriptions are inaccurate, and the inaccurate type description won't talk a whole lot about behaviors and displays, but rather about approaches and manners of attending to things. Some of those things will express as displays, of course, unavoidably, but most type descriptions are all displays and no function analysis, basically.
I find it interesting, though, how people have certain quirks that can be evident to someone else, but they don't see them in themselves, but assume that they can still type themselves. Like, there's just certain manners of attention that you almost have to be watching from the outside.
Well, I mean, I think metacognition in general, which is the choice to think about your own thinking and why you concluded this or that, or just that you are attending in a certain fashion. That's really something that differs between types, the kind of metacognition that one does. So I'm doing a disinterested metacognitive calculus on my own cognition all the time. I'm looking for things that intuitively link to ideas that I already have in my SI and that I've been thinking about for a while. And for example, when I was in the car one time, I was going someplace. But I was going downtown to pick up Ruben, and I was thinking about where else I might go while I was down there that I might needed to get downtown in that area of town, which I don't go to very often, right? But by the time I thought about that for a while and thought about it enough, I had forgotten where it was I was going in the first place. Now, the thing is, on my dashboard in front of me, I had a piece of paper that said where I was going. But instead of looking at that piece of paper, or even using the NI reality of, remember, you're going downtown, so why are you going downtown? There's only one reason possible, Instead of doing any of that sort of stuff, I searched back in my memory to when it was I decided to leave the house, that I was where I was going then, and I remembered, that's right, I'm going to get Ruben at this place. And then after I remembered that, I noticed a paper in front of me. I was like, that's some NI ignoring there, Eric. That's some real NI ignoring. The point of this is that kind of metacognition is a disinterested calculus on my own thinking. I don't care what it reveals exactly. I'm not attached at all to the idea that that it reveal strength in me, for example. Like, that's not a very flattering reality to analyze of myself, me being kind of dumb in that moment and not taking advantage of the obvious truth in front of me. But it doesn't matter. I'm not attached to that idea. I'm more attached to the idea of correctly or disinterestedly analyzing my own thinking. So I come up with a lot of examples like that, and I come up with a lot of examples that, whatever, of instances of my own cognition that then I analyze in conjunction with existing pieces of information and try to make fit. INFP judgments of people are not static. We will never make up our mind about you because we judge each one of your self-expressions separately from all the others you ever did. Okay, that is scary. Well, my point about INFPs being scary is basically my experience of the intertype relations thing. I find some types infuriating, some types scary, some types fun and interesting, some types kind of purposeful, I guess, So that's going to be...
He finds one very sexy.
Which type?
INFP.
All right. Well, I'm not saying that INFPs aren't sexy. I'm just saying that they're scary. And They're scary because I always feel like they're staring into my soul and scalding it with their boiling hot judgment.
Is that why you fell in love with one?
No, I was just very susceptible. I'm not in my place of least resistance. She dumped a little bit of that INFP greedy love at me. And I was like, wow, that's powerful. It's like, wow, you really love me. And it's like, I want you all to myself kind of shit, you know? And it's, I don't know, it's powerful. And when an INFP genuinely like really is into you, loves you or whatever, and they look at you, they're just looking at you with this sort of sense of satisfaction of being in your presence and how much they like you and stuff. And for an FI poor person, it caused my entire fucking circuitry to go haywire. It was weird. I've never behaved so strangely in a relationship before.
That's what you told me in this relationship.
Well, I mean, I've never. This is. I never behaved so strangely as I did in that relationship. I've never behaved quite so badly as I have in a couple of instances in this relationship, but that's because we had to go through our battles and stuff, and you were very frustrating. Kimberly, as opposed to like INFP, I would never have gotten into that kind of long-term battle that Kimberly and I had to fight through because I would just be doomed to lose. But as duals, Kimberly and I feel like we're equals to each other. Like we can both hang with each other just fine. We're best off when we're working cooperatively, but it
is rare.
It's pretty common. It's pretty common. When is the TWFP meetup happening again? In June. In a couple of weeks. You might be in the area
Why?
at that
Who's
time.
asking?
It's Hambone. It's Hambone. We had a little bit of a drama related recension of an invitation to somebody because of problems and stuff. But Hambone, where are you gonna be in the Los Angeles area around 2 weeks from now?
If you all one day want to be invited, you must behave.
I think you can get along with the opposite sex of your supervisor, but not the same. Well, I think that's true that you can get along better with the opposite sex of the supervisor, possibly.
What's going on out front?
I don't know what the fucking dog is barking about. It's annoying as hell.
We'll make sure there's no robber trying to break into our house.
Right on, Hambone. Well, you guys should come. I will, especially for, well, you have my phone number. You can get it from any of the videos or whatever. It's as a default thing. Call me when you're in the area. And I'll be making a couple of announcement videos too. Like this, here's one thing we're all doing as a group. Come do it. It's like a public thing. But if you want to come over to the house and stuff, give me a ring and we'll hook it up. Okay.
Is Joey Joe still coming?
I hope so. I hope Joey Joe Shabby is still coming. She said she's gonna be the one who brought all the cocaine. So pretty important she gets here.
Well, I don't know if I'm gonna resend her invitation now. No cocaine is allowed, Eric.
I'm joking. No cocaine. Cocaine's a dumb drug.
No meth, no cocaine, no ecstasy.
Winter, you're wrong about that last bit. INFJs seem to be staring at yourself over there and not there, judging your external behavior and making incorrect assumptions about your motives. Look, Supernova, formally, okay? Formally, there's no cocaine allowed. If some cocaine were to show up uninvited, well, I'm sure we get done. I don't do cocaine on the regular. I've done it before, and I'm not a big fan of cocaine. It's okay, but oh, your blow hookup fell through. Okay, that's fine then. I think INFPs see through people more than INFJs. INFPs use FI while INFJs use MI. Well, they see through people in different ways, and they see through different kinds of people. So INFJ and ENTP get along great. We both see through each other in a positive way. It's like we can communicate on a lot of subtextual levels that enable a kind of mutual understanding that is particular to that kind of those two metaphysical types. The thing is, INFP is ignoring that whole language basically, and so as a consequence, I would say that they probably underestimate the depth of it. I agree with you, Supernova. The high is not worth the bag of dollars. Choco, oh my gosh, why INFP scariest? Because I feel judged by them because they're my super prototype. I'm getting fairly hungry, Kimberly. How about you?
I told you there's that sandwich in there.
Okay. The one you dropped on the floor?
No.
It's not that one?
It's the other half of that.
Oh, it's the other half, the non-dropped on the floor half. Is that right? Is that true, or is it the one in the half that it ended up on the floor?
No, I swear.
Okay.
I just wasn't into it, the entire sandwich. So I threw that half away, and then there's the other half still in there.
As an INFP, my communication always breaks down with an INFJ over time. It's weird and frustrating. You guys are ignoring each other's dominant function. You both validate on each other's dominant function, but you're ignoring it. I mean, not you're ignoring. I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. You are ignoring their tool function, and this is going to cause them to be eventually frustrated. Meanwhile, you're countervaluing their dominant nature, and that's going to eventually start to become a problem because INFP doesn't like it when NI claps the shit down, because once shit's collapsed down, that means it's time to SE and do something. INFP is the most SE polar of all the types because there's never an occasion when INFP goes, all right, time for discussion is done. Let's get this shit on. Let's move. There's never an occasion that they do this because there's always time for more discussion. There's always room for more discussion. They've got NE as a tool function. They're always coming up with more possibilities. And they've got FI as a dominant nature, which means everything is damp from the fog of moisture that surrounds them. I can handle INFPs in this context because they're just text, right? I don't have to look at their eyes staring into my soul. An INTP that is in love with an INFP is going through hell quick. Indeed. And hopefully out of it quickly enough as I was. It's
that INFP chick say that her boyfriend was?
You mean the ISFP?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. So in that regard, it's like Trump is the SE notion. Time for empty talk is over. We're going to get shit done. Doesn't matter if it makes any sense. Doesn't matter. That's how intuitives, there's this mistake that intuitives make. Intuitives often talk about SE as though it were about force or power or something like that, conquering and shit like that. SE is not about those things at all, but it may actually correlate with them quite well. It's going to seem like it's like those things to intuitives. Intuitives don't like the way that SE shuts down the intuitive process, the intuition deliberation process. So we're like, no, I want to talk about it more. Okay, enough talk. Let's get the shit done. Everyone move. Then we're going to feel like we're being forced, right? We're being pushed in some regard. But that's not inherent to SE. If anything, an SE person will feel equivalent from any. So it's like an SE person will be like, okay, let's get shit done. And the any types will sit around and go, well, hold on, we got to talk this whole thing out. They're feeling as though they're being forced into a molasses of syrup that slows everything down and makes it impossible for them to actually accomplish anything. So the idea of it being power or force is a perspective thing. It's not implicit as a function at all. And this is a very, very common misconception because it does correlate that way from our perspective. That ESTPs are like, I run shit around here and I'm the boss and you're going to do it like this. And let's do it. All right.
Yeah.
But okay, there's no such thing as autism spectrum disorder for the millionth fucking time. Avoiding eye contact sounds more like ASD to me, though. Avoiding eye contact is just something that anybody who doesn't have FE in the first two slots is going to potentially do. I avoid eye contact a lot simply because I want to listen to what the person's saying. And I don't want to be distracted by FE cues and FE data, basically. So INTPs...
Which cancels me out completely.
INTPs might additionally avoid eye contact. INTJs, FE polar, sure. And they might also be called ASD. The reality is, if you're not suffering from some kind of mental retardation, you do not have a disorder that's called, Asperger's or ASD. What you have is you are landing within the range of normal human beings. It's just that your polar is more obvious to people than other people's polar. FE polar is pretty obvious. Why is that guy so awkward and weird? Doesn't he seem to get how he's being interpreted? Well, no, it's his blind spot. But that doesn't make him have a disorder. Same thing with ADHD. ADHD is not a disorder. It's a cognitive function alignment. If I'm an NE-DOM, especially with TI, I'm ADHD. Same thing with an SE-DOM, especially with TI. So that's what I have to say about those kind of fucking disorders that are just clusters of randomly associated, not randomly, but clusters of associated symptoms that only become symptoms when they cause you problems, and the degree of which that qualifies you as having that disorder is totally a subjective, holistic decision, a standard executed by some sort of practitioner. Bullshit. They're all bullshit. Yeah. So, that's what I think about that stuff. But a lot of people get fussy about it too. My basic message in this channel has always been, one of my basic messages has always been, there's nothing wrong with you. Unless there's something actually wrong with you. Now, sometimes there are people who there are actually things wrong with them, but they're the vast minority of people who think there's something wrong with them. And I think a lot of people probably have gone through a lot of life without having this told to them. And I know that when it was told to me for the first time, it was extraordinarily emotional and gratifying and meaningful. And it was a simple message. There's nothing wrong with you. Because, for most of our lives, most of us are told there's something wrong with us in one way or another. I mean, not directly, most people don't have parents who go, there is something wrong with you and you are blah, 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 directly, but they're constantly being told to change and be more like this and be less like this and yada, yada, yada. So, I think that's an important message to get out there, because I suspect that most of the damage that people sustain, unless it's at the hands of somebody who's repeating a cycle of abuse or something like that, but most of the non-clinically abusive damage that people sustain is sustained simply from cognitive biases being imposed upon other people and being internalized and becoming limiting beliefs as a consequence. Thanks, Geo Niggy Yugi. That's your name. Well, that's a hard name, Kim. Come on, don't tease me. And thank you, Liv, as well. I saw that, what you said there, too. I appreciate that. Makes me feel good. I do have my third slot FE scorecard function, which I especially feel good when supervisors approve of me, But yeah, I think we all receive that impression to some extent or another, that there's something wrong with us when we're children. Because one way or another, what did you just knock over?
Nothing. I threw your nuts in the trash.
Oh. So
they're disintegrating into little pieces.
Like, I was always told, well, if you could just be more organized, if you could just be less all over the place, if you but that's not the assignment, Eric. The assignment was this, and you did this other thing that you thought sounded fun, but it wasn't really the assignment. So that's why you got an F, It's like, well, but the thing that makes us, I think, all understand or manifest damage ultimately is that as we get older, we realize that the thing that we underwent was kind of fucked up. And when we're a child, we don't necessarily assume the thing we're undergoing is fucked up. We often conclude that we must be fucked up to undergo the thing we're undergoing, you know? And so once we conclude as adults that the thing we underwent was fucked up, then we have to deal with the reality that, you know, to some extent we blame ourselves still for not stopping it or not doing anything about it or not knowing better. Of course, we couldn't know better back then. Generally, we were kids or whatever. But
So we spend the rest of our lives undoing it and
well, we just have to
repairing it.
yeah, we have to come to a certain point. It's that we don't have to spend forever undoing or repairing. It can take a relatively short period of time. It's just a matter
I
of.
think we spend. I think I don't know.
I mean, yeah,
We're always evolving.
That's true. But what I'm saying is that for core damages that persist through time, that keep rearing their head over the course of years, for example, same issue. Then at a certain point, it probably means that we've not reassured ourselves in some regard that we can and will prevent that kind of thing from happening again to us. And it seems like obvious, maybe that of course we would now that we're an adult, but the part of us that was feeling traumatized needs to be reassured of that almost directly. And that's my experience anyway with
Well, I think also people
therapy.
don't realize that even getting into interpersonal relationships, especially in intimate relationships, that there's certain parts of you that certain damaged parts of you that can damage your relationship, which force you to work on issues that you maybe didn't even know you had, like me, and you. I could have continued going on in my life being single and never had gotten myself into a relationship where any of those, I guess you would say, what I would call for myself, this is my opinion, deficiencies, in things that I need to work on that, make me a happier person. So being with you, encourage. What are you saying? What are you doing? Why are you laughing?
I'm smiling because Jeebus gave us a buck.
Oh, thanks, Jeebus.
Thanks, Jeebus. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Hey, every little bit counts.
Yeah.
We genuinely do appreciate that. It adds to the revenue and is a show of support that is worth noting. I will pack a bowl and smoke it for you on your behalf, transubstantiate it to you.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, I hope everybody knows that when they do donate, that it doesn't go to us, really. Is that what you were saying, that it doesn't?
No, it does. We just get a portion of it. We get like about half of it. She has the same. So Blue No Words. Kimberly sounds like the wife of Randy Marsh on South Park. She has the same type of voice and speech patterns. Well, Randy Marsh's wife on South Park is, I would say it's fair to say, is an ISFJ. So that makes sense.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't watch South Park, so I don't know.
If you don't,
they must have been pretty impressed with her, though, to put her as a character.
This is a great quote from Supernova. If you don't heal from what hurt you, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you.
I like that. Yeah, I've heard that before. That is a great quote.
I've never heard it before. It's a great one.
It's so true. It's
almost like as good as the quote I heard the other day on Wikipedia for the Hungarian version of "You can't have your cake and eat it too." And that's the Hungarian version is "You can't have a dick in the ass and a soul in heaven."
Yeah, I don't really like that one.
It seems to be unnecessarily mental on anal, right? But I'm just saying, I think it's curious.
Yeah, you know how I feel about anal. I really love it. So it's really
a less vulgar version is you can't take a swim without getting wet.
Yeah, I think you need to use that one.
And then Supernova, I recognized it was a quote. You put quotes around it. You gave full. By doing so, you indicated clearly that this is a quotation. I am not making it up right now. So that's fine. I'm.
Yeah, I've heard it before. It is.
You did not. You did not try to take credit for it.
Yeah.
ISTJ, INTJ. I think. What's that answer to? I don't know. If we're doing tri-types, I think it's 964. ENTP, Kelly Cannon. Ron Morris. So if you're born with a dick in the anus, you're going to hell? Well, I don't know how you would be born with a dick in the anus. I guess if you were one of two twins. I don't find you INFPs so intimidating when you're just words on the screen here. I can deal with just text. Your most piercing eyes superpower is
piercing eyes or rolling eyes. Is that
rolling eyes is ISFP.
ISFP.
Piercing eyes is INFP for me anyway. That power is turned off a bit because you're just able to type. But if I were to do something mean, I'm sure from the live chat would emerge a cutting remark, very subtly cutting. So you wouldn't be able to determine it was cutting, but it would cut me because I'd be like, ouch, I fucked up. It'd be some sort of very, cautiously delivered.
Yeah. He gets that often with his mother. She's always shaking the pointer finger at Eric.
Geo Niggy Yugi, you can't have a piercing mouth, okay? You cannot have a piercing mouth. It doesn't make any sense. You only have piercing eyes. If you have a mouth, that's got to be pursed lips and pierced eyes. So yeah, the thing is, when I type INFPs, that's when I really feel it most of all, because they're sitting there and I'm telling them about themselves, and they're sitting there going like this. I would definitely rather have an FE user mad at me than an FI, especially higher up FI. That's true. If an FE user is mad at you, you can usually reconcile with them because probably the thing they're angry about is communication related. In other words, somebody used the wrong words. Whereas if an FI user is mad at you, it's because they think you're a bad person in some regard, or that you're behaving like a bad person. It's more of an ontological judgment, I'd say. Shreddy Chandran, I know, right? They're always been friendly and approachable people from my experience. They're willing to give you help with your problems if you give them direction. INFPs? Well, maybe, but I don't know. They just, it's just a matter of feeling like a fake around them, They make me feel like a fake. How do you determine your supervisor type? Well, you can look at this chart here. I'm going to go find this chart again. I'm going to put a link in here so that everybody can see it. It's called the Socionics Intertype Relations Chart. Now, the thing to remember about this is that for introverts, the P's and the J's are reversed. So if you're an INFJ, you got to look for INFP on this chart. That's INFJ. So the P's and J's are reversed just on the introverts, not on the extroverts. It can make things unnecessarily confusing sometimes, but such is life. Let's see. Let me click the all thing here. Here it is. Okay, so this will tell you what your intertype relationship is. Now, the thing is, it's good enough name for these intertype relations to use the ones that socionics use, because I don't have any other names and why change them. But socionics description of all these intertype relations, I think some of them are more right than others. So it depends which source you look to and stuff like that. But so a supervisor relationship, as described by this website, I'll go ahead and read it, is explanatory somewhat of what I'm talking about here. And I will read it as soon as it pops up. These relations are also asymmetrical, as they are relations of benefit. One partner, the supervisor, is always in a more favorable position in respect to the other partner, who's known as a supervisee. Relations of supervision can give the impression the supervisor is constantly watching every step of the supervisee. The latter usually feels this control, even as the supervisor does not say or do anything. The explanation for this is that the supervisee weak point is defenseless against the supervisor's strong point. This makes the supervisee nervous and expect the worst. Although the supervisor can seem self-satisfied, petty, fault-finding, and narrative, I don't know what that means, the supervisee pays attention to their actions and considers the supervisor as consequential. The supervisee normally wants to gain recognition and commendation from the supervisor into proving their own worthiness with various actions, yet there's little chance they will succeed. And I got to see this in action with the woman who, this other person, this ENTP woman that I had typed before, she's the one who set up this typing today, right? And at the end of it, she was like, but basically just saying to me, but how can I impress this guy? How can I break him? And I just like, you can't. You're never going to be able to. And she was just like saying, but affirm me. She's telling the guy basically. It's like I said, no, listen, that's bad FP. You gotta, as a young ENTP, you're gonna have to learn some tricks here, tricks of the trade. You can't do it like that, and you're never gonna succeed with this guy. So just forget about it. Where's old blue hair ketchup art? I don't know. The way I think of it in my head on the fly is realize their polar is your dominant. They also have the same S or N value as you do. Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. You mean SE Trickster makes it scary?
Who called her blue ketchup fart?
Jeebus.
Jeebus.
Do you think if the supervisor was aware of their role over you, they might be able to behave in a way that would be less threatening? Yeah. See, it's not really. There is the element of the perception of the supervisor, which understands deficits of the other person, but it's really the perception of the supervisee, and it can't. It's like the supervisee has trouble with ever not feeling two steps behind. Like at any moment, the other person can pull the trigger on any number of traps they could have set up. That's how I would feel about it. Of course, INFPs aren't interested in doing that, but I shake the feeling that I'm susceptible to it regardless.
Well, it's like one said on there. I don't try to be scary. I don't mean to be
scary. Hi, Delilah. I don't know. All right, bye. What happened to the power cord that the microwave was plugged into? I don't know.
It's probably there.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. I'm enjoying Adam Exercise's comment. The chat dynamics are overwhelming. Haha. I've never felt any urge to try to impress ESFPs. Well, so your type is what's ESFP's supervisee? ESFP's supervisee is INFP. Are you an INFP? Are you an INFP, Sweaty Chandran? It'll probably only happen if your supervisor is a dominant judger, then you feel the urge to live up to their standards. It might be more the case that way with a deliberation. It's possible. Eric makes smoking cool again. Winter, smoking never was not cool.
Yeah, it was not cool.
I always felt there's some power in supervisor. He feels good when the supervisor likes him. So that's kind of nice then, Chris. You feel good when your supervisor likes you and pats you on the head. Good job. Oh, no, yours the other way around.
Good
your
job,
significant other feels like that.
Can you hand me the...
This? Here, take the lighter from my hand.
Okay.
When you are ready, you'll be able to take the lighter from my hand. Rami Fakri says, they are excellent manipulators. I know why INFPs are scary. They're excellent manipulators, even better than SFPs. Well, I mean, I wouldn't call them manipulators. I think they show a great deal of caution in their influence of other people. a manipulator would seem to be, that term suggests they're self-serving in a way that's not attentive to how the other will be impacted by things. But I will tell you, they've got a kind of wisdom I don't. When I got with an INFP for a little while, she predicted exactly when and how our relationship would end right at the very beginning of it, which was just basically explaining to me how I was going to proceed in my emotional response to things.
Thanks, Jojo.
Robbie Fackery says it's because they have an excellent map of all human emotions. Yeah, I guess so. Well, I mean, certainly they get what they want, right? They can totally get what they want. And some people are more susceptible to their wiles than others. As FI polar, it's my place of least resistance. I'm very susceptible to their wiles, I suppose. But I'm most likely to get tricked by an INFJ because I validate NI more. I think ENFP is my supervisor. My band manager is an ENFP, and I like his ideas. Yeah, ENFP would be your supervisor. They know how to turn it into another.
Gee, this is a very important question.
ISTP supervising ESFP. Now, ISTP supervises. You gotta remember to switch the J's and the P's. ISTP supervises ESFP. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, I think so. They're the masters of manipulating psychological distance and managing their image in the eyes of others. Who? INFPs? INFJs are the master of managing the image in the eyes of others. INFPs are not the master of that. They are perhaps the master of manipulating psychological distance. I don't know about that. That's possible. My hair is lovely. I have to keep it like this. I gotta use tweezers and pluck out all of the hairs from these areas and thin it out here. Otherwise, it's got a full head of hair and it's boring. It's hours of work every morning. Like, ow, 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 ow. Okay. Looking good, Kim, says Supernova. I don't think I'd be good at manipulating people at all.
Thank you.
JDJDJDJ. I can barely get people to listen to me, aside from the fact that I wouldn't want to anyway. That's the most important element. Is INFPs don't want to manipulate people unless they, it doesn't mean that. Look, if you're in the sights of an INFP, probably, and they're going to get with you. But the thing is, they probably won't even try unless they're convinced that it's morally acceptable to their understanding of it or whatever. So, but that's kind of an iffy understanding. I got to agree with that. I don't know that an INFP would intend to manipulate because they're SC polar, not wanting to assert their will on others. Right, there's that too. They don't want to. They'd say they like it when other people decide. They assume other people need to have as much deliberation as they do. INTJs have a total map of human emotions, and it's more utilitarian than that of INFP. That's probably true, actually. It's a much more simple map. It's like my map of FE. I have a total map of FE, but I only pay attention to certain parts of it, and I don't really pay attention to other parts of it, and I only really use certain parts of it. So it plays out as I like the kind of FE where I get praise and affirmation, and I will engage in the other kinds of FE as well. But basically, it's the candy dish of the functions. So, I will only manipulate people unless I have something to gain. So you will only manipulate people when it suits your interests. Okay. I manipulate people to end conflict or defend people from getting hurt. All right. Get with? Yeah. Like, get your Mac on. What does Kim think of ENFJs? Okay. Are ENFJs her supervisor? No, they're not. No. Are they? Oh, yeah, they are, huh? Oh, wait. Who supervises who? Her polar is TE. her dominance. Yeah, that's right. They're her supervisor, right? No, ESTJ is. I don't know. I gotta look at the chart. ISFJ. ISFP is what I'm looking for. It supervises ENFJ. Okay, so your supervisee, Kimberly, is Parker. Do you feel like his supervisor?
Yes. And he treats me like I
am. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If my supervisor is INFP, because they've got, oh, I see, they've got my, oh, right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, fine. Let's see. Hey, Eric, how did you get such expert knowledge on typology? I can see your neuroplasticity is off the chart with fresh understanding all the time. It's crazy. Well, thank you. I just make a bunch of YouTube videos for several years in a row. It takes a lot of repetition for shit to sink in with an ENTP. And one of the nice things about having fourth slot SI is you kind of repeat yourself without really remembering it. So I favor novelty. This is a rich enough ideational area that I can generate new concepts that are consistent with existing ones. I can keep track of consistent existing ones without getting too attached to them, but it takes a lot of repetition, you know? I did do a fair amount of research for a stretch of time until I kind of just went off on my own ideational track. The research I kind of stopped doing research when I kept encountering a lot of contradictory shit, and it was just starting to annoy me in the sense that it was like, this is either wrong or this whole thing is fucked up. I gotta figure this out, you know. So, ghosting 101. The question keeps coming up as people come in, why are INFPs scary? Because they're my supervisor type. That's why. Is TE about configuring workable systems? TE is about things that have their own logic, whatever that might be. Right now, we're talking about this thing. We're talking about cognitive functions, this kind of communication. This is stuff that has a universal logic that applies. It's a communicative logic. It's definitional in its nature. Whereas something like this has its own logic. There's gas in here, and you push this button, and it lets out the gas out here, but it also makes a little spark here to light it on fire. So when it comes out here, it's a torch, right? It's got its own way it works. It's distinct to that thing, and that's what TE is about. TE is a matter of attention that focuses on the ways in which individual things, systems, devices, whatever, protocols of an organization, for example, the way those individual systems, logics, each individually work. ISTP is who I supervise. I know, Jordan. I have a stepson who's my supervisee, and I make a concerted effort to not be supervisorial around him at all and to be pleasant. But I mean, it's like one time this was a while back when early in the relationship. Things have changed a lot since then, but he was kind of talking a little bit of shit, and his mom said, well, why don't you tell Eric this? And he said, you think I'm going to win that argument? It's like, that seems really funny to me, right? Because
that is funny.
It's just such a supervisee thing to do. Like, I obviously can't go talk to him about it, so I'm just gonna have to bitch to you about it because he's gonna destroy me.
What was that about?
I don't know. It was some dumbass thing from a long time ago.
That's funny.
The consensus amongst according to Geo Niggy Yugi, they don't really feel supervised by ESFPs. Well, there's another thing to note, which is there's probably a quality that makes a person feel more supervised is being FE than FI. So an FI person or an SI person is going to be a little more grounded in the self inherently than somebody who's got SI lower or doesn't have FI. I think for somebody like me who's FI polar, where I feel like I'm getting exposed is it's like they can tell there's nothing behind the facade or something. It's like a deep ontological fear or something that is implicit to the type. Do I think there is something behind the facade? Of course, but I mean, I don't think anything's really a facade, even. But I just have this implicit fear that they see it that way, and that reality is somehow made true by them. Just as for I'm sure ISTP, there's an implicit fear that they're never gonna be able to win an argument with me, even though they're TI DOMs. No matter how logically consistent they are, it won't be enough because they've got a sword and I've got a sword and shield, and the two things will always work better. And of course, that's a very TI kind of a very TI FE frame of things, and it's very different than an FI frame. But let's see. He's hard to connect with. I don't know what he talks about. His wife would know. My nipples are rock hard. Butt wander? Thank you for sharing that with us. You probably should stop putting the air conditioner right here. That's what I would suggest. ESFP supervises INFP. SEDOM FI tool. Right. What's the difference between TI first slot and TI secondary? Is in their ability to process TI reasoning. TI first slot's a little bit faster, but remember, TI reasoning in general is binary, so you're either right or wrong about it. And what's much more important in terms of argumentation is to not just be right or wrong about parsing out objects in front of you, objects of argumentation, but to be able to anticipate how rebuttals are going to come in from all different angles and to be able to spike out those kind of things and or to be prepared for those. ISTP knows no matter how much they prepare going in, I will surprise them with something they haven't prepared for, and I will win that argument. And so that's why it's an easy way to break down the supervisor relationship because it's so concrete like that. Kimberly, you look like you're getting ready to go inside, huh?
Yeah, if I was up to 13 hours of sleep, I better get started.
Okay. I'm going to wrap it up in here and come in there within 15 or 20 minutes.
Good night, y'all.
Because I won't get my mic on, dog. Shh, don't tell her. I'm going to surprise her with my penis. Surprise. I don't think she's going to be that surprised, though. She's seen it before. But INFP in the title gets 52 viewers. I know, it's funny, huh? It's a good point, Hambone. I hadn't even really considered that. This is like I was thinking to myself, oh, this is a well-attended live stream, and ignoring, I hadn't considered why possibly it would be more well-performing than normal, being the title. It was just the only reason I titled this because I had that experience today where I typed in INFP as dude and felt like I was in the principal's office the whole fucking time. It's a better time for you than usual. Geo Niggy Yugi. Geo Niggy Yugi, your name has come to become one of my favorite names. I like Geo Niggy Yugi, and I like, there's another name that I've come to really appreciate where, let me look up here and see what it was. Maybe he deleted all of his shit. Sruddy Chandran. Sruddy Chandran's a great name, too. Sruddy. My name's Sruddy. Geo Niggy Yugi and Sruddy Chandran. No, it wasn't Butt Wander. Butt Wander's a fine name. But I think Butt Wonder would be a better name than Butt Wander. I like the strange names like Geo Niggy Yugi and Sruddy Chandran. Like, who would name their kid Sruddy? I don't know. Or how about this one? John Westy H. Sanaga. John Westy H. Sanaga. FI DOMs are scared when they slander my tertiary FI by telling me what a bad person I am. Well, you should stop being evil then, John Westy H. Sanaga. John Westy H. Sanaga. What a great name. What does the H stand for? Hubbada Hubbada Hubbada? John Westy Hubbada 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 Sanaga. That should be your name. Johnny Butt Track? Johnny Butt Track is not a bad name. Butt Wander, you want to change your name to Johnny Butt Track? June Wednesday. Huh. Jen Wednesday. Jen Wednesday. But Wanda. Bahut Wanda. It's pronounced Bahut. Bahut. He also wrote a song called Dogfish and Armchair. Philosophical thinkers making more unsubstantiated claims. Speed is relative. Okay. How well something is relative. This is why there needs to be position differences in the stack. Oh, yes. I agree with that. Actually. Why is Abby from Croc River question an NI answer? Well, I don't know if it is necessarily. That's a good question. I think saying Abby is it's NI because it's like, in some sense, all of the action of the story is predicated on her one bad decision. So in that regard, if you were to eliminate the causal chain, the most definitive way to do that would be to have her not make that decision. But I mean, I don't think it's the best answer. Personally, I don't think Abby's the least honorable behaving one, because at least Abby doesn't act out violently against anybody like Ernest does. What strikes me as weird is that so many people think that Conrad or whatever his name is the evil one, the ship captain who says, well, if you can't pay the money to get across, I'll give you this other option. You can sleep with me. To me, that sounds like he's not done anything wrong at all. But a lot of people will answer that as the first answer. And I think if you have FI higher up, you're more likely to answer that because you see it as fundamentally exploitative, regardless of its technical, contractual respect for the autonomy of the other. What about the friend? Oh, the friend. Now that's, again, I think that would be an FI answer. Like, it would be her friend failed to fulfill his basic duty to make this an easy thing for her when he easily could have, just on some personal gain grounds that might happen in the future. So in that regard, if you're an FI or FE person, you're going to find that offensive. You might, if you're FI, find it offensive that Brian just kicked her out and sent her away. But most people have such strong feelings about fidelity that they'll not necessarily conclude that. Oh yeah, I forgot about that question. Everyone kind of sucks, but I think I answered Abby because if she loved the dude, then why would she sleep with the other dude? Period. Good question and reasonable answer for sure. Also, Brian could have sailed his ass to see Abby first instead of being lazy. Yeah, he could have. It's not clear how plausible that was for him in the story, but maybe there was a hole in his rowboat. Maybe he doesn't have a boat. I'm not sure. Maybe he was getting with Felicia, the heretofore unmentioned sixth character whose name begins with F, and he was getting with her. Maybe, in which case, would that change it? If you knew that Brian was the whole time sleeping with Felicia on the other side of the river, would that change anybody's answer? Because then he's like, he's getting all offended and kicking her out, but he's actually doing it himself, and he's hypocritical. What are people even talking about, says Supernova? Well, we're talking about the Crocodile River question, in which there are 5 characters who each behave badly, and the question asks which of them behaves most badly, and it's supposedly a values test of sorts. Okay, but would it make Brian's behavior worse in the story if you were to know the added detail that secretly on the side, while they were separated across the river, he was sleeping with Felicia on his side of the river? The real answer is the government for taking its citizens' tax money and not doing the repairs to the bridge they should have made after the amount of time that had passed. Well, that's a good answer too, doesn't it, INTJ? But unfortunately, this is a wild region of largely ungoverned tribes. So, yeah. And also, it's full of crocodiles, the river, chock full of them. In my opinion, Eric was an authentic philosopher. I was like, well, thank you, Winter. That's very nice of you. I always wanted to be an authentic philosopher. I kind of gave up on that dream a long time ago. Everyone in the story is infidel, so they'll be stoned to death and face the wrath of all. Okay, well, the question then becomes, Hambone, who do we stone first? Is getting stoned first better than getting stoned last, or would you rather get stoned last? I think you want to get stoned last because then people's arms are tired from all the other previous stonings. But then that might just make your stoning slower. I think it doesn't change how bad what Abby did, but he sucks a lot more than he did before then. I don't think he was all that wrong in the first scenario. Right. I mean, I would kick her out too, for sure. I don't think, you know, I don't know what I would do in this situation. First of all, I wouldn't date somebody on the other side of the river. You never trust those other side of the river people. You know, there's something wrong with them. They're inferior to us. They're west side of the river people. We're east side of the river people. We stay within our own. Okay? Two people decide to jump off a bridge and die together. They count down, and person A backs out while person B pulls a parachute. Who is worse? B. Person B for sure. Person B for sure, because they knew they weren't going to die anyway. You never thought about their arms getting tired? You just wouldn't want to see the carnage? Well, the thing about their arms being tired, if they're tired enough, maybe, you know, you could win the stoning battle. You could pick up the stones they throw at you and throw them back at them. Person B was attempting murder. Exactly. Rowan Morgan, that's a good way to put it. Person B was attempting murder, whereas person A was being sensible. That sums it up nicely there, Rowan Morgan. Person C pushes them both down. Well, then person C is the worst. For sure. Person B is going to get a reputation. Oh, don't kill yourself with Joey. He's killed himself with like 6 people, and note he's still alive. Hey, you want to kill yourself with me? I'm Joey. We'll jump off the bridge together. Why are you wearing this big ass backpack if we jump off the bridge together? Oh, I want to take my stuff with me into the grave. You know, I got my old stuffed animals and stuff in there. Are you sure? And this looks a lot like a parachute you're wearing. Oh, no, that's not a parachute. Parasail. Okay, it's a parasail. You're trying to kill me, aren't you? Yeah, something I do. I don't know. I got in the habit, and I can't stop. Why are people afraid to die? We all die eventually. Worrying about dying is a waste of time and energy. Well, Jackstrap, I would say this. Some people are not afraid to die. FI DOMs, in general, are not afraid to die, although they're afraid to die too soon, probably, and they're afraid that when they do die, when they're old and having accrued all the weight that life has to put upon them, that they'll be ready to go. For types that are more distant from their own feelings, we tend to not ever want to die. So we might be afraid to die because we'll be missing out on an opportunity to do shit. It really depends. I wasn't easily able to answer that. Didn't know how to approach it. I couldn't see the bad intention of B. Well, right. I'm not scared to die, but I'm scared of disease and suffering. Man, you know FI. Thanks. I know about it intellectually. I actually know a little bit about it with my heart, too. I have had a child, been in relationships and stuff. I really understand FI and its sort of attachment and just sort of enjoying the experience of the other person. I mostly know that through my daughter. When we don't hang out that much anymore, but when we do, we go out to lunch. I'm not interested in talking. I'm just interested in listening to her and hearing her talk about stuff and just sort of being in her company. And that's that's an FI experience that I can kind of understand and get. For a long time, I always thought that the expression, I missed you. Oh, it was good to see you. I missed you. It was just like saying, how you doing? Fine. It didn't actually mean anything. It was just something you said when you reunited with people. And then I came to understand that there is something called missing people, and that sometimes you feel like a longing for another person's company. But one thing that was a constant source of periodic conflict between my ex-wife and I was she'd come home and say, "Did you miss me?" And I'd say, "No, I was busy doing stuff, of course. I'm glad to see you, though, but I didn't miss you, obviously. I don't miss people when I'm not with them, obviously." Now I understand that there are times when, like, I just want Kimberly to pay attention to me, and I don't want her to be on her phone and whatever. I just want her to pay attention to me. That's an example of FI too. Let's see here. Afraid of pain, not death, but knowing how the story ends drives me crazy. That's a good point there too. I'm curious about that. I hope I'm gonna make it all the way till 90 or so at least. And what does everyone think about euthanasia for people? I think it's okay, provided it's end of life chronic pain kind of. I gotta go now. I've had enough of this. I can't suffer the last 2 weeks of my terminal illness. I think then it's fine. But overall, I don't get too enthusiastic. Let's start euthanizing everybody for everything. No, fuck that. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up now because I'm gonna go inside and try to get on Kim and probably succeed if I'm smooth in my moves. In the meantime, I hope between now and next time that I speak with y'all that you remember to eat plenty of cheese, and if you can find one, try to eat a Japanese cotton cheesecake, the bounciest cake in the entire world.